Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Independent Whiskey Reviews, and today we are talking about whiskeys with and no age statements. I'll try to help you understand why the industry is doing this. A lot of people think that they've been cheated by whiskeys with no age statements. In their view, age represents quality. And yes, of course, age is very important. But it's not the only factor that contributes to the flavor of the whiskey. Back in the 1800s, whiskey was rarely matured. It was even advertised as fresh right off the still product. I believe Canada was one of the first countries to introduce mandatory maturing. Now, North America and Europe have slightly different regulations. Today, in Scotland, for example, in order to put the word whiskey on your label, the liquid needs to be matured for a minimum of 3 years in oak casks. So what I have here, it's two different single malts, Teenson with no age statement, and Glenfarclas, 17-year-old. But is it really 17-year-old? What age statement truly represents, it's only the youngest whiskey in the bottle, not the oldest. I don't know, some of you will say, wait a minute, this is single malt, it's not a blend. How come there's different whiskeys in the bottle? Well, blending is taking whiskeys from different distilleries and different styles of whiskeys, single malt and single grain, and put them together. We call this blending, and the style of whiskey is blended scotch. When we talk about single malts, we take whiskeys from only one distillery, made only from malted barleys. We put them together and we call this process vatting. All single malts are vatted to create more complex and more consistent flavor. Unless, of course, it says single cask on the label. That means that the whiskey came from only one cask, and therefore all the liquid inside is the same age. So what happens if I want to create my own single malt? Let's say, for example, I take 17-year-old whiskey and a 30-year-old whiskey. My final product will still have the signature of the distillery, but it will be even more complex because of the different characteristics of the 17-year-old and the 30-year-old. If I do want to put an age statement though, I can only put 17 years old on the label because that's the law. And that's where the problem occurs. Because the 30-year-old whiskey that I used cost more, my 17-year-old whiskey will be priced higher than other 17-year-old whiskeys on the shelf. And the consumer will think that this product is simply overpriced. So age has become also a price tag. And I think you should avoid buying whiskey solely based on their age. The most important factor is its taste. I personally don't think that there should be any shame of displaying what the real age of the whiskey is. Whether the master blender has used 8, 12 and 30-year-old whiskeys on the label, I think that will be even better for the consumer to understand what goes into the process of making whiskey. But of course there's another reason why there's no age statements on the bottle, and that's shortage. Well, it helps the master blender to unlock some of those younger whiskeys in their warehouse to create the final products. And I think there's nothing wrong with that as well, as long as those whiskeys are not priced higher than some of the whiskey with age statements. Well, I hope that explains most of it. Thank you for watching, and if you do have any questions, please write a comment. Thank you. Bye.